Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Puck on the Parkway, talking New Jersey Devils hockey with Daniel Rebane, and I'm James Burley. The New Jersey Devils. Uh, oh boy, how do we even start this, Dan? Five losses in a row, five regulation losses in a row. The first time they've lost this many consecutive games since December of 2022. And if we can pull any positives from that team was pretty darn good that year, but the Devils have got to go back to the drawing board. It has been a nightmare run, to say the least, for the New Jersey Devils. And we're going to look at the last five games. We're going to look at the last 12 games and some news going on around the league and around the New Jersey Devils because there's quite a bit of noise going on right now. First and foremost, Dan, it's been a little while since we chatted. Good to see you. I know what you're going to say. We're both not doing so well considering how the Devils are playing some hockey right now, but how are you doing otherwise, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Covering Army hockey has been a blessing this season. That's been a lot of fun. And they got their first win with me in attendance for the first time this season. They were 0-7-1 with me in attendance, and I made the trip up to Fairfield, Connecticut on the campus of Sacred Heart University. Great building, by the way. Opened in 2023. Awesome, awesome building. And Army pulls out a 2-0 shutout, their first regulation win in Atlantic Hockey America in over a month. Their last one was Holy Cross in late October. So good run for Army so far. The past 2 weeks, they got 4 points against Sacred Heart last weekend. They beat number 18 UMass at home 5-4 in non-conference play. So hey, Army's on a bit of a rise, playing better than the Devils right now. So, how you been, brother?
Yeah, first off, shout out to the West Point Knights. I saw that barn SHU looked
Oh,
beautiful. Yeah,
bro, it's
and
awesome.
yeah, of course, check out Dan's coverage of Army hockey on Bad Dog Sports, following an up and coming program here in the area. No, but hey, up and coming in the realest sense. That's a big
Hey,
road win. Glad you were able to see it in person, and hopefully the first of many more for you to catch in front of your eyes. To bring it back to New Jersey, doing well personally. Just starting a new writing gig with NJ Hockey Now and
yes,
James Nichols. Very happy to be
congratulations.
getting that done. Unfortunately, first assignment had to cover their most recent game, an absolute dud in Boston. And I think it's a game that was pretty emblematic of how the Devils have been going really
Mhm.
since the Jack Hughes injury in mid-November. And that was around the last time we talked. We had a show, Dan, and
Yeah, right after.
we were both discussing the urgency that the Devils would need to replace Jack Hughes. You were harping on that point a little bit more. I think you've been proven right for sure. I was saying let's see how these 2 weeks go. If the Devils can survive, then you don't want to force a move that alters the roster too
Mhm.
heavily. But I think we've learned now time and time again. This Devils roster can't survive when one or two big guys go down, especially when their biggest guy in Jack Hughes goes down. And this time it wasn't even a hockey related injury. We do not have to get into the specifics of what happened at the team dinner in Chicago. We all know it's been covered quite a bit, but the fact of the matter is the Devils struggling to say the least. There's been criticisms towards Tom Fitzgerald about getting a move done. There has been noise around the league as to who the Devils are targeting. Big names in those conversations. But to talk about the hockey that they've been playing, a 4-1 loss to the Boston Bruins on the road on Saturday night, but a game that they were probably the better team for a good majority of. Not a strong Boston team, although one that has been playing above their weight, I would say, in the Atlantic Division. Jeremy Swayman having a great bounce back season. He was strong against the Devils on that Saturday night.
Yeah.
Not that New Jersey did a whole lot to challenge him in different ways. They outshot the Bruins from start to finish. They came out with a lot of energy. They knew that they needed to come back from two consecutive 3-0 losses at home. They had been goalless for 128 minutes going back to the third period against Columbus on Monday. They lost 4 games in a row in a homestand. They go back out on the road. They start the game well. They put together a hero line of Heishier, Bratt, and Timo Meyer. Timo Meyer gets a goal late in the first period to tie things up, but that would be the last goal the Devils scored. It would be their first goal in 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 48 seconds of gameplay, and would be their only one on TD Garden. A 4-1 loss, a game that they kind of let get away from them. The goaltending from Jake Allen was decent. The night before, the goaltending from Jacob Markstrom was probably even better in that loss to Vegas. Just a lot of things not going right. The bounces in front of goal, they're just not getting them right now, Dan.
Yeah, and I think that was my biggest concern with Jack going down, right? Is the offense because obviously with him and hitting on all cylinders, power plays clicking, they're one of the best scoring teams in the league. But without him, I mean, it's been 12 games and they're only averaging 2.08 goals a game. That's not going to win you games, especially when you're getting shut almost half the games since he's been out. That's not a winning recipe, and clearly this team needs more offense to help kind of balance this lineup out because Benning playing decent early in the season, they're getting no production from the bottom six for a majority of this recent stretch. So they need help. We'll get into potentially Ryan O'Reilly or Steven Stamkos later in the video, but yeah, I mean, internal options aren't clicking. They called up Angus Crookshank to try to maybe spark something on the fourth line. He's looked good, but again, no goals no goals from him, no assists or anything. So it's just offensive production is lacking. I think when you see a guy like Jack Hughes, you're the face of the franchise go down, it just brings the morale of the team down. Every game that goes by where you're only scoring maybe 2-1 and you're getting shut out, it gets even lower and your confidence on the ice just shrinks. So um, I think this team needs help immediately. They need something to spark them back up. So all eyes are on Tom Fitzgerald right now.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot to criticize about the Devils' play other than their ability in front of goal. Earlier in the season, it was a
To
lot of
be fair, they've looked good, right?
yeah. They're. It's not like you can't say that the character isn't there, that they're not working. That they bring a guy like Angus Crookshank, who you mentioned, and I mean he's the hardest worker on the ice.
Mhm.
The compliments that were headed his way out of Utica were that he was always the first and last guy off the ice. He's a guy who's gonna he's gonna skate his tail off for you on that fourth line, but the guys around him in that bottom six have kind of felt like passengers lately. There just hasn't been that sort of depth that felt like was really strong at the start of the season is kind of withered away because people have had to step up in bigger roles in the absence of a guy like Jack Hughes. And it's just not a recipe for success, like you mentioned, Dan. Uh, I have said one player that I think has been stepping up in a good way has been Timo Meyer. He's got 9 points through those 12 games without Jack Hughes, 6 goals. Maybe his I believe it's 6 goals with the goal he scored against Boston, his 11th of the year. So he's been strong, stronger than he's ever been in a Devils jersey to this point of the season. So that's good news. Certainly, you hope that can continue for him. But I was watching the Bruins game, and I just felt like Luke Glendening. I didn't even realize he played that game. Just not to pick on him specifically because he's not the only one. There were some good chances on that third line: Connor Brown, Cody Glass, and Gritzuk. All skillful players in their own rights. Just haven't been able to get it, and as a result, every single mistake that team makes that gets punished just feels that much bigger when you're not getting goal support. The two glaring examples: the first goal that Boston scored, it's Chalowski slips in the D zone and Nemitz gets picked off. And, you give up a goal like that, you're good for those mistakes every few games or so in the National Hockey League. And when you're not scoring goals, it's just going to hurt you that much more. Later in the second period, it's Brendan Dillon who makes an errant pass out of his own zone. The only real, glaring defensive error I would say that Dillon's made to this point this season, right? He's just not that type of player. A guy who is, we've already been talking about how much of a warrior he is. Shout out to him for playing 1,000 games and
Yeah.
then bouncing back the way he did after brutal mishap against Columbus.
Yeah.
Um, a tough goal to give up, but normally I think the Devils could fight through those punches, but just again haven't been able to get it together in front of goal. One player that I think a lot of fans are hoping would step up in this moment, but maybe hasn't fit the bill is Jesper Bratt, who works so well with Jack Hughes. And we entered the season with folks in and around the Devils and from outside looking in, suggesting maybe Jack Hughes isn't the best player on the Devils. Maybe Jesper Bratt's just as good. And while you and I will both disagree with that, I mean, the gap isn't that big. Jesper Bratt is an incredibly skillful hockey player, but what has happened is when he's the one, wild card out there, fast, skillful guy, the attention goes towards him and he's not able to work his magic. He doesn't have Hughes to play make with anymore. It's such an insane duo, PB and J, for a reason. And it's taken away from how good Brad has been. I would love to see him in the next few weeks or so that Jack Hughes will be unavailable. We don't know what his timeline is. He is skating. We found that out today, that Jack Hughes is in fact skating. I don't know if that meant with the team, in what capacity.
No stick.
No stick, of course. Still not ready to play hockey yet, but that is good news. I'd be very excited to see Jesper Bratt if he can create a formidable partnership. There was once a time where Bratt, Palat, and Hughes was a pretty darn good looking line, at least for a little while there. I'm not suggesting that Palat's going to be the Hughes next to Bratt that he's been waiting for, but that's a player that I'd like to see step up in a bigger way in the next few games for New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, I think just without Jack Hughes, right? I think, Jesper Bratt just puts too much pressure on himself and he kind of changes his game ever so slightly, where he puts all that pressure on him now that he has to be, the guy instead of just playing his game like he normally does with a Jack Hughes. And sure, when Jack Hughes is down on the ice, more focus will be shifted to him. But I feel like if he just played his normal game, like, being that quick, agile guy, making passes in and out, taking shots, I think he'd have much more success. But I think he's just, gripping that stick a bit too tight right now, especially in it. And it always gets, highlighted when, the team's not scoring or they're not winning, right? It's what's Jesper Bratt doing? He hasn't scored in a certain amount of games, right? He's only got 10 assists. So I think he is feeling that pressure. He always kind of does feel that pressure when Jack isn't around, and I feel like he's got to get over that mental hurdle if he wants to take that next step as an individual himself. Because we know the skill that he possesses when Jack Hughes is in the lineup. He's one of the best players in the NHL. Um, but I feel like he's just got to get back to his game. Just make it simple again. Just relax, man, because you're still a great player. This team is still good. Even without Jack Hughes, they are better than what they are putting on the ice right now. It's just about getting back to what worked for them when Jack Hughes was here. And obviously, other players have to step up to bring that success back. But, I think Jesper Bratt just needs to look himself in the mirror, get back to what he was doing, and simplify his game. And I think, the goals and more offensive production will come from that.
Yeah, I totally agreed, and that's not to say that Bratt has never, looked good in a Devils jersey when Jack Hughes wasn't there. I mean,
Yeah.
let's remember Jesper Bratt came into the league before Jack Hughes and was excellent in his rookie and sophomore seasons.
Yep.
Before Jack Hughes was ever a Devil, for most of last season when Jack Hughes wasn't available, Jesper Bratt was the Devils' most consistent point provider, even with Jack out of the lineup. So this is a guy that we know the Devils can rely on. It's just a matter of can he put it together in this moment where, look, not a lot of guys are showing confidence out there. While the Devils are playing well, they're playing hard. It's you can tell that the form is just it is weighing on these guys. I mean, there in Boston there was a 3-on-2 rush that Cody Glass led, or sorry, that Cody Glass was the fourth trailer onto, and the pass ended up on Simone Nemich's stick. And I mean, I can't think of a guy who's got a hotter hand in New Jersey, maybe besides Timo Meier, than Shimon Nemitz. I mean, he should have all the confidence in the world, and he instead decides to drop the pass off for the late arriving Cody Glass, and it's knocked off his stick because it wasn't that clear of a look. But I'm thinking Nemitz, man, you've got to fire that shot. Like
Mm,
that. And then again, I'm picking on him because to me, he's an example of a guy who should have a lot of confidence. All these guys should have a lot of confidence. They're all great
yeah.
players. This is a good team. It's well constructed, with the exception of can they fight through an injury to Jack Hughes? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. And I'm glad I mentioned Nemitz because he's a guy whose name always gets floated around in these types of trades, especially with the likes of the third Hughes brother, Quinn. And those talks have ramped up again, and it's not just smoke. There's actual fire now. Sources have
Oh, it's
confirmed
burning. It's
there
burning.
is burning up. The sources have confirmed that there indeed have been talks between the Devils and Canucks about a trade for Quinn Hughes. It doesn't feel like anything's imminent at the moment, but those discussions, they're real. They're starting. Shimon Nemitz is often the guy that gets mentioned as a potential return for Vancouver, the former second overall pick. Ryan Novozinski actually asked him about that today, and Nemitz, said, try not to feed into that, and you try to focus on your game, and maybe that's something that might also be affecting his confidence. The team that he's just now really started to have his coming out party for, might start thinking about trading him. So maybe I should be a little bit easier on him in terms of when he should and shouldn't shoot the puck, but. I don't know. Let's talk about the Quinn Hughes one first. Let's not bury the lead here. There's
Yeah.
other big moves that the Devils are considering, but the Quinn Hughes one, Dan, I know you're always the type of guy to think of mock trades. You think you might have cracked the code here. Let's before we get into that, let's talk about the dynamic that Quinn Hughes would bring to this Devils team. Not exactly the type of player that you think would turn it around in the moment that they're currently in, but assuming everybody is healthy, Quinn Hughes, the second best defenseman in the National Hockey League. I mean, you go and get that guy. You
Mm.
you absolutely do what you can to put him on your team. Your thoughts on the likelihood of it getting done and how that would improve the Devils before we get into mocks
Yeah.
and some other thoughts there.
I mean, breaking news. I think, I can see the fire from here from Vancouver because it really is a dumpster fire right now. And you can see it from his play the past, week or so that he just doesn't have it anymore out in Vancouver. I think he sees the writing on the wall. The team is just isn't good. The owner isn't good. The GM isn't good. He sees it. And, I feel like he didn't want it to come this fast. And that's why it's probably affecting his play so much where, he wanted it to work out in Vancouver. I think he generally likes that city, loves living there, right? But it's
Cool.
just everything kind of fell and just like nothing's working out there and you can see it with his sluggish play where they turn the puck over in the neutral zone and he turns around and he's like there's no way these guys just turned that puck over. So I think this trade is going to happen faster than people might think. We've already had Elliott go from, yeah, nothing's imminent to, yeah, now there's actually been talks, so maybe something's going to happen. So I'm thinking in the next week or two. Vancouver comes to New Jersey next weekend, by the way, so that is going to be very interesting. I mean, just imagine, right? He's either traded before the game, traded after the game, where he just, changes locker rooms, where he goes from the visiting locker room, like that happened in baseball a couple of times. They go from the visiting locker room in the building to, oh, now I'm in the home locker room. So I think this trade is going to get done before. I could see this happening before Christmas. Like that's how much like speed this is picking up. Just with all like the tea leaves around and just like what's going on, how Quinn's playing. I think, you know, like he didn't want it to happen this early, but I think he wants to get this over with before the Olympics. So I really do think this is going to happen. Question is it going to be New Jersey, right? There's other teams floating around.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I feel like that might be smoke from media and from Vancouver's GM trying to up the price from New Jersey, but I think this does get done rather soon.
Well, things aren't just burning in Vancouver because someone's on the hot seat in New Jersey, and that's Tom Fitzgerald. There
Oh
had been discussions for weeks. Jack Hughes is out. Do the Devils make a move? Did the Devils make a move?
yeah,
I was in the camp of wait and see for a little bit. You don't want to make a move that alters the course of your roster. But it seems like that's something they're going to have to do. The Devils should absolutely be in win now mode. They've got all their best players locked up long term. They should absolutely go for someone big. And if that's Quinn Hughes, and if it's before Christmas, before the Olympics, oh boy, that'd be crazy. I think it'd be the biggest news in the NHL, of course. But again, like you said, Quinn Hughes not only necessarily in talks with New Jersey. There's other teams involved here. I just had to get this off my chest before we move on and talk maybe about a mock trade here, and then talk about some other targets for the
Mhm.
Devils. I saw. I'm not sure who it was. I think it was on Daily Faceoff, a podcast. They were mentioning that bringing Quinn Hughes to New Jersey would hinder the development of Luke because he wouldn't get as much power play
Oh
time,
yeah.
and that it's you have too many defensemen who play
Ridiculous.
the same roles. I'm sorry, like too many. The Devils are going to have too many $100 bills to fit in the wallet. Like what these are we're talking about great players. You go and you get great players if you can. And of course, people are going to hit back with the famous Herb Brooks line. I don't know if he actually said it or if it was just Kurt Russell in Miracle. You're not looking for the best players, you're looking for the right ones. Well, I don't care what hockey team it is. Quinn Hughes is the right player. He
Mhm.
is a generationally good defenseman, arguably the best of the Hughes brothers. I
Yeah,
mean,
right now. Yeah.
we're talking about a guy who maybe doesn't have the
He's won
same
a heart. I mean, and he's won a Norris
Won a
trophy.
Norris. Yes, we're not necessarily talking about a guy who has the same skill set and Jack Hughes, who on his day is unplayable. But Quinn Hughes is the second best player in his position in the entire world, and the only
Mhm.
reason he's not number one is because a guy named Cale Makar plays in Colorado.
Yeah.
Um, it was just such a silly thing. I
And
thought to
I
hear
and
that.
I just want to add onto that, right? You said that maybe it doesn't like, I guess, it doesn't turn around the offensive struggles. I think it turns around the offensive struggles when you bring in a guy like
Right,
Quinn Hughes because
guy who's gotten 70
he
assists this
is
season.
he is Jack Hughes on the back end. Like he brings that element with also being able to defend in his own end. Like, on 5, like he's one of the best skaters in the world, best defenseman in the world, best puck moving defenseman in the world. He will impact this team like no other. And I feel like if there are calls happening right now, you find a way to get this done as soon as possible. Like you have to get this done. And I mentioned this. I like replied to someone talking about, if Tom comes second, right? Because that's the whole joke, right? About last year is that he came second a bunch. If Tom comes second this time, he's getting fired. That's all I'm gonna say. That's gonna happen, right? If he goes anywhere else, right, and he signs an extension, right? Don't hopefully that doesn't happen, right? Like say he goes to Detroit, signs an extension with Detroit. Tom Fitzgerald's getting fired. Like this deal, potential deal, will set him up for the rest of his New Jersey career.
You know what? Suffice it to say, I did not hear a single person saying that the Red Wings already have too many good young offensive defensemen
Yeah,
and they're
right?
still in the market for Quinn Hughes. Yeah, there's
Oh,
Sider,
Mort Sider.
Edvinson, Anderson. Yeah, no, yeah, no, but Quinn
I
Hughes
can't
fits
get him.
there. Just because he's already got two brothers on the Devils, we gotta talk about how the team dynamic and it doesn't fit. Gave me a break. Regardless, Dan, what do the Devils have to do if they're going to try to get Quinn Hughes?
Yeah,
Because
and I
I agree that if this blows up dramatically in the Devil's face, there's no way I see a way path forward for Tom Fitzgerald to keep his job.
yeah, so I want to preface this by saying that before this trade happens, right, they're gonna have to shed some salary. And, I feel like it's gonna have to be done beforehand, whether that is Dougie being moved with his 10-team trade list or Andre Palat's 10-team trade list. One of those two guys are gonna have to get moved if you're gonna pull off a Quinn Hughes trade, right? From all indications that we just keep on seeing, Andre Palat has no desire to leave New Jersey for whatever reason, right? So is Dougie Hamilton the best option to move? Would he accept anywhere else? I don't know. But to shed that 9 million, you're gonna have, if they can shed that 9 million, that's what it's gonna take to bring in a guy like Quinn Hughes and his salary. So when looking at Vancouver, right? their biggest need or their biggest want in trade talks apparently is a center. And, technically the Devils don't have that. They don't have a center that they're willing to, a good enough center at least to part ways with. But if Vancouver really wants to, you could try Dawson Mercer at center, right? Give it a shot out there. Maybe them
This at
going
this
all in
point,
right there. Why
has
not?
Mercer played more center this season than wing? I think it's getting close at this point
Yeah.
now.
So
It's
like
probably about even.
he has the ability to play center. I think it's just about just them if they're gonna be able to commit to him at center, I feel like that would boost his confidence at the position. It's just about him taking faceoffs and winning more. I think that's the only thing kind of hampering him being a full time center because he is a great winger. I mean, but like imagine him as a center getting in on the forecheck, being that rabid dog in the defensive zone and around his net. So I feel like he has the ability to play center. He's young enough to still develop into that, right? So clearly he's one of the pieces going the other way. And then the other one, I know Devils fans aren't gonna like it right now, but it's Simone Nemec, right? And I want to say that Devils fans are probably going to say this is too much, and then Vancouver fans are going to say this is not enough, right? So me being in the middle, that's probably where it's going to land, right? So right now, Dawson Mercer and Simone Nemec are probably the two most likely guys going the other way, just because I kind of put this out there because people were talking about Vancouver wants Nico Hischier. Yeah, yeah, man. I want a supermodel girlfriend. We can't all have good things, right? So you can ask for whatever you want. You're just not gonna get them. Jesper, people have mentioned Jesper Bratt. He has a no move, so he's not gonna waive that. That would be ridiculous for him to do that with him and his wife. So looking at the players that have no trade restrictions, like those are your two best assets. And Simone Nemec, the way he's playing, is played himself into one of the top 10 players in his age group, like, U21, right? He's still 21?
He's 22. No, he's 2004 birth year, I think. So I think he's 21.
Yeah, so he's one of the best U21 players in the world right now. So him as a right-handed shot, them getting him in with Hronek would solidify that top four significantly heading into the future. So I think those two guys are your main two pieces, and then you're gonna have to add in draft capital, right? 2026 first round pick. There you go. You got that. Or if they want the 2027, you pick which one you want, and then I'll throw in, or the Devils are gonna have to throw in a 2028 second, which has an asterisk next to it. If the Devils make a Stanley Cup in the next two seasons, it turns into a 2028 first. So what is that? That's one, two, three, four pieces. And then I'll give him another center prospect that the Devils drafted this year, and that's Gustav Hillstrom out of Sweden. So that's a center prospect as well for them. So that's five pieces. And I think that would be a very good haul for Vancouver. Maybe they can go get a better one somewhere else, but I just don't see another team offering a package like that without knowing that Quinn Hughes is going to re-sign with them, and I just don't think he's going to re-sign with any team at this point other than the Devils.
At least without, spending time and
Yeah,
in a new place and
but
becoming accustomed to it
and then why would a team give up all that capital just on the
on the
hope
off
of
chance. Yeah.
6 months later he's like, you know what, I'm not going to re-sign here. So like all the smoke with Detroit, right? I could see it with Detroit. Sure, if you want to put that in. But Philly and Pittsburgh, can we be serious? Like those two teams are in no position to be trading for a guy like Quinn Hughes. Obviously, they would want to trade for a guy like Quinn Hughes. But are we serious? They're not trading for Quinn Hughes. They're nowhere close to being playoff ready, especially in Pittsburgh's case. Philly might be a couple years away, but Quinn Hughes is not going to Philly knowing that the team is a couple of years away from being a playoff team, let alone a Stanley Cup contender.
The one thing that would bring him to Philly is Rick Tocchet, and I don't know how much pull that has
Yeah.
for Quinn specifically. Obviously, the former coach in Vancouver.
Mm.
Mercer and Nemitz have long been involved in
Yeah.
not just trade talks with Quinn Hughes, but any mock trade you see the Devils involved when it
Well,
usually has those two guys.
That's what happens when you give out all this trade protection, right? You can't
Yeah,
trade anybody. So that's also been a big slight on Tom Fitzgerald is that he's giving all these, no trade clauses out. 10-team trade clauses, 15 no team trade clauses. Like almost everybody on the team has one. It's kind of crazy. Like Brendan Dillon has a full no trade clause. Like just think about that. So yeah, so with no trade restriction, those are your best players, and thankfully enough, Simone Nemec is probably one of your most valuable players on the team or in your organization. So that kind of helps out. And he's also on his rookie deal, heading into it would be I believe he's up for a new contract after this season, right? So
his contract here will be his rookie contract will be up at the end of the season. Dawson Mercer has been playing much better this year. Has hit maybe a little bit of a rut in the last couple weeks, but the whole team has since the Jack Hughes injury.
mhm.
I've been particularly impressed with his ability to be very versatile, both as a winger, as a center. He's not really a second line center, but on the third line, he proved he can absolutely match up to whatever centers across the way, playing down the middle, and he's a very formidable middle six winger. So it would be a guy that the Devils would miss. Simone Nemitz, I don't have to explain why he would be a guy the Devils would miss. Seamus Casey, a name you often hear as well in those trade talks. I think for him to really be involved in the Hughes deal, maybe would have had more longevity to this point in the National League, as opposed to just a really good flash at the start of 2024-25. But that's not the only talk, of course, that the Devils are involved in. It's not just Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
Um, Talks now surrounding a new forward, a new centerman, something of a veteran discussion between the likes of Ryan O'Reilly as well as his fellow Nashville Predator, Steven Stamkos. And you mentioned, Dan, in order to get that Quinn Hughes deal done, you're probably going to have to shed some cap. Getting rid of Nemitz and Mercer wouldn't cut it. You'd have to make another deal as well.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Devils targeting one of these two guys on Nashville? Who would you prefer? I think we've talked about this now because we identified these guys as obvious targets for this type of role the Devils need to fill. Both guys can play as wingers if Jack Hughes comes back healthy. You add one of these guys into the top six to play alongside Hughes or Heishier, and you fill in two birds with one stone right there. You have your depth if you have an injury down the middle, but you also have extra scoring in your top six as well. Stamkos may be the more attainable of the two, but Ryan O'Reilly, probably the guy you'd want a little bit more. What would the Devils have to do to get either of these guys?
Well, I'll say right now, right? You get Ryan O'Reilly. I think that's the number one guy that they're looking at down in Nashville because, it fills the center need of center depth. Fully healthy, Ryan O'Reilly's your third line center. Like, just think about that. That's Stanley Cup contender right there. And you push Cody Glass down to the fourth line, and we've seen how good, Cody Glass has played when he's healthy this year. So I think that's the biggest name they're looking at down in Nashville, and if they can't get Ryan O'Reilly, they've floated the name of Steven Stamkos, and it just doesn't sound like a good fit.
Great
And
season from Stammer so far, if we're
and
putting it politely.
and it's like he has no value right now. No offense to him, it's just his age, the way he's playing, his production, his contract. That's the biggest thing is his contract. He has what are the Devils willing to give up for a guy that's making 8 million, who's, a scoring winger, yes, but, just hasn't been playing well this year or, since he's moved to Nashville. So I just don't see that as a good fit at all. Obviously, he'd bring the scoring touch that the Devils are clearly lacking, and he'd probably play on that wing with Jack and Jesper Bratt once they're fully healthy. But I just feel like they can probably, find a different avenue for a winger. I think, getting a third line center that can fill in as a second line center if someone goes down is a much bigger need. And that's why I think Ryan O'Reilly is probably the guy that they look at. And I actually forgot I actually forgot to say in my mock trade for Quinn Hughes, right? I would add Lucas Reichel because they've been looking to trade him um, away after they traded for him for a fourth round pick from Chicago. They're already looking to trade him. So why not add another German speaking player to the Devils? And then just think about it, fully healthy. You know, Lucas Reichel on the left wing, Nico Hischier down the middle, Timo Meyer on the right wing. All of them speak German. So maybe just, feeling at home a bit more will help him settle in and find, that talent that he is, former first round pick. So I just wanted to preface that. So
Well,
back to,
no, I'm
oh
glad
yeah,
you
go.
did because we mentioned Reichel at the end of last season during the
Mm.
trade deadline as a guy that the Devils could maybe look for. So
He's got the
I just love
talent, man.
it. Absolutely has a talent, would fill a need within. You could put him with Nico and Timo, or could fill him in on the middle six somewhere.
Yeah.
It's certainly a guy that could play in multiple different roles, and I just love when things come full circle. But please continue.
No, I was gonna say back to the Nashville thing. Who would you rather have? Because I feel like it's pretty clearly that we both kind of want Ryan O'Reilly.
And look, we said this 2 weeks ago when we last spoke. We identified these guys before, it was confirmed that there had even been talks between the Devils and Nashville because either one of those guys fits needs that the Devils could have. Is it possible that Steven Stamkos comes to New Jersey? You put him on a line next to a speedster like Jesper Bratt, and you just tell him sit in front of goal when the chance comes, you score, and it revitalizes his career, and he ends up getting a 20-goal season in the end. I don't see that as impossible. I actually think it would be a good fit for him to come to a speedier, younger, good scoring team like New Jersey. But that's a big contract, and I don't know
Mhm.
if that's exactly
Even
what the
at half
Devils
retained, like,
at half retained, it's that's the price of Dawson Mercer. So if he ends up going, because Dawson Mercer's on 4 million, right?
yep.
Did I make that up? Yeah, no. It's because if Dawson Mercer ends up going to Vancouver in a trade, that doesn't really save you that much cap if you're getting Stamkos even at half retained, right? So O'Reilly makes more sense from a financial perspective. And if we're being honest from a hockey perspective, we also identified that he was a little demoralized with some of his performances this season. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. Who knows? I hope he's gotten over that though. It genuinely made me sad seeing him so dejected after a performance in the locker room. A guy who is a Conn Smythe winner,
Mm.
really just one of the better players in the NHL for the last decade or so. A guy that I love to see succeed. So I definitely would put him above Stamkos in terms of the pecking order of who the Devils can get. But then that begs the question, who goes the other way in that trade? Because
Mm.
this is now the opportunity to shed some cap. We talked about Andre Palat. He's probably not going to go. Could a guy like Dougie Hamilton be interested in that move? I don't see how that would make sense for a guy like Dougie Hamilton who has a no movement clause of his own. But
Exactly.
that $9 million, I mean, we've mentioned Dougie now for a while as a guy who, if the Devils are going to get a Quinn Hughes, it just doesn't feel like there's a place for both of them on this roster, given the salary cap.
Yeah, like again, we kind of said this before. They're gonna have to find a way to make a trade to offload one of Dougie or Palat's contracts, right? Is that the Nashville? I don't know. It's gonna be difficult, right? They're looking to get younger, not older, right? So if we take Dougie out, right, and Palat out, say we trade one of them in a different trade, shed some cap there. They go, down. They make that Vancouver trade. They get Quinn Hughes, right? Send Mercer the other way. They basically are taking half of you're taking out half or double of what Mercer's contract is basically with Luke Hughes, right? So now, you're looking at Ryan O'Reilly. He's making 4.5. What are they gonna want? Well, I think the report was a first and a higher end prospect. And maybe this is where you use the other first that you didn't use with, Quinn Hughes. I said,
Yep.
either one, you take 27 or 26, whatever they want, whichever one. And then you come back the other way and say, all right, here's the other first round pick that we want or that we have. We'll give that to you. And then is that prospect a Seamus Casey? Is it a Lenny Aho? I think that's probably the tier of prospect the Devils are willing to offer. And I think No, if it's Casey, I think that should easily get the deal done. If it's Lenny, maybe it's a bit of a question. Maybe you can negotiate it down to that. But I think that's probably what a trade would look like based on reports out there. So I feel like I would do either one of those two trades for Ryan O'Reilly. Thoughts?
I agree. Now that begs the question because I certainly I'm on board with that. Are we going to see these moves? And if we do see them, how quickly?
Hmm.
Because there has been this criticism now. It had been bubbling under the surface, but now multiple members of the media have come out with several pieces saying
Yeah,
if Tom Fitzgerald sits on his hands any longer, it's going to be
yeah.
his fault if the Devils,
Get off
are
your
no longer
ass,
contenders
basically.
this year. And we look at the standings. I mean, the Metropolitan Division,
They're
as tight
already
as
out of
can
the
be,
playoffs.
they're not just out of the playoffs, Dan. They're 1 point out of last place in the division. They're in seventh.
Yeah,
They're 6 points, albeit with a game in hand, behind the Capitals, who are all the way up in first now. I mean, 1 week at a time, when we could see the entire shape of the playoffs in this division swing. The only team in the entire Eastern Conference that feels like they just aren't in it is the Buffalo Sabres. And it's so sad because you really just want them to finally take a step and just be in the conversation. And right now, there are 16 teams in the Eastern Conference. They're the only team that's out of the conversation. They're on 26 points.
yeah,
They're only 8 points out of first place in the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Atlantic, but Ottawa's in seventh on 30. They're 4 points out. That's 2 games. The
yeah.
Metropolitan, 6 points between the Devils and Capitals between first and seventh. I mean, this is ridiculous. Just utterly ridiculous how close things are in the NHL. I think it's the best league in the four major sports, and it's not even close how much parity there is right now, with the exception of a couple teams in the Central Division who start to look like they're running away with it in the Avalanche and Stars. Can't wait for them to meet in the first round of the playoffs again and eliminate one of them before they
Yeah,
deserve.
thanks,
Um,
Gary.
yeah, and shout out to the Anaheim Ducks, who are on top of the Pacific Division, who a lot of people, thought they might take a step or two this year, have taken a leap, so to speak, and that has been very exciting. The Devils, when this comes out, it will be tonight, but for us, it's tomorrow. They face, excuse me, the Ottawa Senators on
Hmm.
the road. A big test. Can they avoid losing six in a row? It would tie their longest losing streak since December of 2022. Ottawa, again, in the same boat as the Devils are, just in the Atlantic Division, a couple points out of a playoff spot, but in at risk of spiraling and maybe, you know, getting distanced more and more, which would be a big disaster for both these good, young, fast teams.
Yeah.
That'll be a tough test. And then the Devils are home for three in a row, but homestands did not treat them nicely in the end of November, start of December, despite opening up the year with such a fantastic home record. They lost 4 home games in a row. They're going to face the hottest team in the Eastern Conference in the Tampa Bay Lightning, then one of the hottest teams in the West in the Ducks, and then on a back-to-back, could be a meeting between the newest Devil potentially and Quinn Hughes against the Vancouver Canucks for New Jersey. That'd be a fun one. I hope we get that baseball style locker room transfer before the game. That would be fun. I don't know if it's going to happen that quickly, but if it does, oh
Question,
boy.
question, right? Let's say that they do get this trade done, right? And Quinn Hughes is the New Jersey Devil. What number is he wearing?
I was hoping you were going to ask that. I don't know. Does Luke
I
change his
do.
number then?
No, I know a number.
You know.
Um, I don't know.
Oh wait, can I guess? Can I guess?
You can.
Did he wear six in juniors? Is that what you were gonna say?
They do wear six. That is in the family. That is in
Yes.
the family heritage. The question is, right, does Luke go to six? Because I know they do sell 43 jerseys with just Hughes on it, right? They don't have an L Hughes. So that wouldn't be, I don't think you would have to go through like NHL clearance, even though technically it is a number change mid-season. Maybe they would. So maybe he just goes to six. But I think he just kind of wants a change from his Vancouver days if he does get traded to the Devils and goes with number 6, Andy Green's number.
Shout out
So
Andy Green. Cat, hey, both American captains, both
yeah.
D-men number 6. Writing's on the wall. I think you cracked the code there, Dan. The Devils face the Ottawa Senators. When you're watching this, it'll be tonight. As we're making this episode, it's tomorrow night. They got to bounce back. I mean, they've been playing some good hockey, but they've got to bounce back. They've got to score some goals.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, if they can't find those bounces, they'll have to be perfect defensively. That's the only way they'll win games at this point.
Mm.
And like against Boston, like against Dallas, and like against Vegas, couple bad mistakes, you lose by a few goals because you can't score. Hopefully, for Devils fans, they turn that around. For Daniel Rebane, I've been James Burley. This has been Puck on the Parkway. Hopefully, better news for Devils fans the next time we chat. So long. Thanks for watching.
Peace.